What about the women? Let's talk about it. It's always been a debatable topic throughout the Christian faith as to whether or not women should teach, women should preach, women should be bishops and pastors in the body of Christ. Watch this. Major denominations such as the Southern Baptist Convention or SBC have official doctrinal statements limiting the role of pastor to men only, exclusion from leadership, leading to rifts and disfellowshipping of churches that ordain women. Instances of pastors making objectifying, demeaning, harmful rhetoric or sexually inappropriate comments about women have been reported. This can cause spiritual and psychological harm to women in the congregation and in ministry roles. Many mainline Protestant denominations, such as the Presbyterian Church and United Methodist Church, do ordain women and actively resist misogyny. These churches emphasize the equal value and gifting of all people regardless of gender and point to examples of female leaders in the Bible. While the actions of beliefs of pastors vary widely by individual and denomination, a significant body of evidence highlights the persistent and damaging issue of misogyny within many Christian circles. So we have here misogynistic pastors and preachers and men who are still in religious authority, and they have not been delivered from their misogynistic ways. So we have here the text that is laid plain bare before us. 1 Timothy 2:9 says, "Let the women learn in silence with all subjection, but I suffer not a woman to teach nor usurp authority over the man, but to be in silence." 1 Corinthians, when Paul is speaking to the church at Corinth, he begins to say similar the same way. In chapter 14:34, he says, "Let your women keep silent in the churches, for it is not permitted unto them to speak, but they are to be commanded to be under subjection or under obedience, as also the law says. And if they learn anything, let them ask their husbands at home, for it is shame, what's a shame for women to speak in church." So it was considered shameful for women to speak in church, primarily due to the cultural norm and the desire for orderly worship. And passages like these, like I just mentioned, suggest that women disrupted the worship services with questions and speaking in tongues and prophecies, which indicated a lack of submission. Men were educated during Apostle Paul's time, and women were not. So they were asking questions aloud in the service. And this was seen as usurping male authority. The Corinthian church was experiencing this chaos, and many people were speaking out of turn. So it says here, "If anything be revealed one to another that sits by, let the first hold his peace or keep silent, for God is not the author of confusion, but of peace, as in all the churches of the saints." Apostle Paul is exercising his apostolic authority to establish order and peace in a disorderly worship, as in all the churches he established. Paul's instruction was meant to restore order, not to oppress, not to minimize, not to diminish, not to suppress or hold down women. Lack of education during this era. Women generally received less education, so the questions would have been seen to be as disruptive, needing to be asked or saved by them with their husbands at home. During the cultural norm of Apostles' time, the silence was linked to demonstrating submission and maintaining God's ordained order where men lead. He says, I desire for men to pray everywhere, lifting up holy hands without wrath and doubting. So disruptions within the order of the worship service was seen as the cultural norm, as challenging male authority. Paul addresses a specific disruptive behavior at Corinth, not a universal rule, pointing to his acknowledging of women prophesying. For he said, you can all prophesy one by one. The instruction to be silent immediately follows the passage about evaluating prophecies. The silence was about women not publicly questioning or evaluating the prophets. Not a total ban. Paul also mentions women praying and prophesy in the church in chapter 11, verse 5. He says, but every woman that prays, that prophesies with her head uncovered, dishonors her head, indicating that Paul didn't forbid all women speech, all female speech, just disruptive speech and teaching roles. So we see here it has changed over the course of time. Now, the definition of usurping authority or having authority over man is portrayed as a woman being a pastor, a woman being a leader in the church, a woman being a bishop, a woman being an apostle. But that's not the idea that Paul was conveying to the first church. Because from the cultural norm, for a woman to usurp the authority was not towards the leader or the pastor in the church. Usurping authority was against her husband. It was under the authority of the husband that the woman was to be subjected to be submissive to. But as you can see how misogynistic men have changed the definition of what usurping authority is, how to be submissive to them. Nowhere in the Bible does Paul say a woman needs to be submissive or subject to church leadership. He's referring to married women being subject and submissive to their husbands. Nowhere in the Bible does God give any man in the pastoral position, in a position of leadership, for have all women to be subject and submissive unto him. That authority is only given to the man, the husbandman. Watch this. Why is it shameful? Well, the word shameful in 1 Corinthians 14:35 is translated to mean disgrace or dishonor, a disgracefulness connected to violating headship norms. The husband, where a woman speaking out of turn was seen as bringing reproach or shame to her husband and church order. The overall concern Paul had was to be orderly in the assemblies. What is the definition of bigotry? What is the definition of misogyny? Misogyny, the hatred or prejudice against women, which affects women through violence, physical abuse, domestic abuse, sexual harassment, social or legal exclusion, psychological control. Women can internalize these negative views, leading to low self-esteem, distrust of other women, and a bias towards other men. Bigots in the pulpit today. It's never left the church. It's always been there. Bigotry and unreasonable attachment to a belief, an opinion, faction in particular, prejudice against a person or people, a bias, which is prejudice in favor or against one thing or person or group. Offensive connotations, which carries a whole negative and derogatory connotation designed to reduce a woman's confidence, self-worth, and credibility. Shaming by calling a woman a whore. As we all know, we saw the viral videos that are going circling forth, which reinforces outdated and misogynistic ideas about female sexuality. Power dynamics. The term is used by individuals seeking to control, belittle, or punish women who execute sexual freedom and power. My time is almost up. I only have 10 minutes. For Adam was formed first, then Eve. Paul begins to direct his attention to the beginning, showing the order of creation, as the husband is the head of the wife, not the pastor, not the bishop.